There is a version of you that scares people. Not because it's cruel, not because it's loud, but because it doesn't need anyone's approval to exist. Most people spend their entire lives asking permission to be confident. They wait for someone to validate them, to compliment them, to tell them they're good enough. And when that validation doesn't come, they shrink. They apologize for taking up space. They soften their opinions before anyone even attacks them. But there's a different kind of confidence. Psychologists don't always give it a name, but people who've seen it know exactly what it looks like. Some call it dark confidence. Some call it monster energy.
It's the calm, unshakable presence of someone who has already made peace with being disliked, misunderstood, and underestimated, and stopped caring. This isn't about ego. Ego is loud. Ego needs an audience. Dark confidence is silent. It doesn't perform. It doesn't explain itself. It just exists, fully formed, whether you're watching or not. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most confident-looking people you see online are faking it. They're using tricks, posture, tone, forced eye contact, hoping nobody notices the fear underneath. But real dark confidence isn't built from tricks. It's built from pain that got processed instead of suppressed. It's built from rejection that got turned into fuel instead of trauma.
It's built from moments where a person hit rock bottom, looked around, and realized no one was coming to save them, so they saved themselves. That moment changes people. It rewires something in the brain. Psychologists call it a shift in locus of control. The switch from believing your life is controlled by outside forces to knowing you are the only author of your outcome. Once that switch flips, something strange happens. Fear of judgment disappears. Fear of failure shrinks. Fear of being disliked, the thing that controls almost every human decision, just stops mattering. And that's when the monster mindset is born.
Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly how this psychology works. The real mechanics behind people who seem untouchable, unbothered, and impossible to intimidate. And by the end, you're going to understand exactly what separates a person who needs approval from a person who has become approval-proof. Let's start with the myth. Confidence is not the absence of fear. Every so-called monster, every person radiating that dark, magnetic self-assurance, still feels fear. They still feel doubt. The difference is what they do with it. Weak confidence collapses under fear. Dark confidence uses fear as information and moves anyway.
There's a psychological concept called cognitive reappraisal, the ability to take an emotional trigger and reinterpret its meaning before it controls your behavior. Ordinary people feel embarrassed and think, everyone is judging me, I need to disappear. A person building a monster mindset feels that same embarrassment and thinks, this feeling is just data. It doesn't get to decide what I do next. This is trainable. This is not a personality trait you're born with. It's a skill built through repeated exposure to discomfort. Every time you do the thing that scares you and survive it, your brain updates its threat model. It slowly learns, this isn't actually dangerous.
And the more times you prove that to your own nervous system, the less power fear has over your decisions. Now here's where it gets darker. Because real dark confidence has a controversial ingredient no self-help content won't tell you. Emotional detachment from other people's opinions of you. This sounds cold. It sounds almost inhuman. But think about every person you billions who seemed impossible to shake. The ones who walked into a room and simply didn't care who liked them. That energy isn't arrogance. It's detachment. They've done the internal work of separating their self-worth from external validation completely. And once that separation happens, criticism loses its teeth. Rejection loses its sting. People can say whatever they want, and none of it lands. Because the target it used to hit, the part of you that needed their approval, isn't with his nine. Isn't there anymore. This is why dark confidence looks intimidating. It's not aggressive. It's just unreachable. You can't manipulate someone who doesn't need anything from you. You can't guilt someone who has already accepted the worst version of how people might see them. You can't threaten someone who has already survived their own personal collapse and came out the other side indifferent to outside noise. So how does someone actually build this? It starts with what psychologists call identity restructuring. Most people build their identity around being liked. The good student, the nice coworker, the agreeable friend. That identity is fragile because it depends entirely on other people's reactions. Monster mindset psychology flips this. Instead of building identity around being liked, you build it around being real. Brutally, unapologetically real. You stop editing your personality to fit into rooms. You say the uncomfortable thing. You set the boundary that makes people upset. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. At first this feels terrifying, because you'll lose people. Some relationships only existed because you were small and agreeable. When you stop performing, those relationships fall apart.
This is not a side effect. It's the whole point. Dark confidence requires you to lose the people who only loved your smallness. Then comes the second stage, repetition through discomfort. Every day, you deliberately do one thing that scares you socially. Speak up in the meeting. Say no without over-explaining. Walk into the room without smiling to make everyone comfortable. Small reps. Repeated daily. This isn't motivation. It's exposure therapy. And it physically rewires the anxiety response over months. The third stage is the most important, and it's the one almost nobody talks about. Emotional self-containment. This means you stop needing to explain yourself.
You stop justifying your decisions to people who were never going to understand them anyway. Weak confidence over-explains. Dark confidence simply states and moves on. This is what I'm doing. No paragraph of justification. No emotional performance to soften the blow. Just clarity. When you combine identity restructuring, repeated exposure to discomfort, and emotional self-containment, something shifts permanently. People start reacting to you differently, not because you got louder, because you stopped needing them. This is the paradox at the center of dark confidence. The less you need people's approval, the more magnetic you become to them. It's not a coincidence. Humans are wired to respect what they cannot control. And a person who doesn't need validation cannot be controlled through validation. That unpredictability, that self-containment, reads as power because it is power. But here's the part most people miss, and it's the part that actually matters. Dark confidence isn't about becoming cruel or cold to the world. It's about becoming unshakable inside yourself first. The goal was never to intimidate other people. The goal was to stop being intimidated by life. Somewhere along the way, as you build this mindset, you stop performing confidence, and you simply become someone who doesn't flinch. Not because you don't feel fear, because fear stopped being the thing that decides what you do. If you are watching this, and something in you just clicked, if some part of you is tired of shrinking, tired of asking permission to take up space, tired of needing people to validate a version of you that was never fully yours to begin with, this is your sign. The version of you that doesn't flinch is already in there. It's just been buried under years of needing to be liked. You don't build a monster mindset by becoming someone else. You're becoming who you actually are. Buried under years of needing to be liked, Leerdone, loathing for you, Hind. If this hit something in you, don't just scroll past it. Subscribe, because there's a lot more of this coming. The real psychology behind the people who seem untouchable. Tell me in the comments, what's one moment in your life where you stopped caring what people thought, and everything changed? I want to read every single one.